Hike it or take a hike. A major credit rating agency just issuing a major warning over the push to hike the minimum wage, saying it could take a big bite out of one of America's top industries. And guess what that would do to the economy? Hi, everyone. I'm Brenda Butner. This is Bulls and Bears. Let's get right to it. Here they are, the Bulls and Bears this week. We have Gary B. Smith, Tracy Burns, Jonas Max Ferris, John Layfield, along with Mark Hanna. Welcome to everybody. Gary B., how serious is this?
Brenda, it's very serious, and every time we talk about the minimum wage, it's a head scratcher for me, because I can't see the positives in this. Let's stipulate that it's going to hurt powerful businesses, small businesses, mediocre businesses. It's a tax, basically, so they have either at the end of the year they have less profits to grow their business, or they can hire less people. But let's talk about the populist view of the minimum wage. That doesn't even wash. One, it hurts employment. Study after study have shown that there is a correlation between raising the minimum wage and increase unemployment. Look no further than the last minimum wage increase, and you can see the increase in teenage unemployment. Two, it discriminates. Who is out of a job with this? It's the least skilled, most disadvantaged members of society. They're the ones that get chucked aside when you have minimum wage like $15 like they want to do in Seattle.
Right.
And, Brenda, look, the minimum wage is just a lousy, terrible idea. It doesn't even help those who want to be helped. Of those making minimum wage trying to earn a family, you have about 5% of those of the population. For those people, you'd be better off just giving them a big tax credit or helping them out with welfare rather than raising it for everyone.
Well, Mark, Gary B. clearly has one view on this, and he says there's no positives to the minimum wage. What do you think?
Sure. Just from a purely economic standpoint, I don't know where Gary's getting his information. It is the case that of the 13 states that have independently raised their minimum wage since January, they're seeing more job growth than the rest of the country. So there is an economic argument here that says you incentivize people to work, you put more money in the pockets of consumers, which are people who are, working for minimum wage. They go out and spend it. They're not investing in offshore accounts or investing in foreign companies. They're injecting that money back into the economy. And let's not forget that the business community in Seattle that's advocating against this $15 minimum wage is also advocating for a $12.50 minimum wage, which is a lot more than we're seeing at the federal level right now. So even that business community recognizes that the minimum wage needs to be raised. It's just a matter of how much.
But Brenda, just because the consumer has more money in his pocket, that means the employer has less. So the consumer very well might be out of a job because the employer is going to turn around and say, you know what, now I can't keep you on at $15 because, well, I don't have it to give you. I'm not making that kind of money because profits are tight around the country. So this is just a backwards notion that that's how we're going to increase prosperity in this country. Look, a couple dollars is not going to put you in the millionaire's mansion. That is not how you get ahead in this country. You get ahead by doing better and getting yourself out of minimum wage. That should be the goal here.
Let me ask Tracy, do you think anybody working in America full-time should be living in poverty?
Poverty is not minimum wage.
Yes,
why
it is. If
why
you
is
work
it minimum wage?
you're making $15,000 a year. If you work 40 hours a week at minimum wage, you're making $15,000.
But what percentage of the population is that, Mark?
Right.
It's a
That's
very
exactly
small percentage.
Okay, let me get to John, because there was a credit rating agency that said that this could very well kill the restaurant industry, that this is really a problem. And what does that mean to our economy?
Well, it's going to hurt. Look, Mark makes emotional arguments. That's what you do when you want to spin stuff and make something in some ridiculous realm. How does offshore accounts get into minimum wage arguments? What that is that's just political spin. Let's go after the 1%. You can't compare Pine Bluff, Arkansas, one of the poorest places in the country, to Seattle, Washington, one of the richest places in the country, and say, well, they increased their minimum wage, therefore it must be because of the minimum wage. What Gary B. is talking about is correct. 5% of people are in poverty because of the minimum wage. What about the other 95%? The majority of people, the average family that has a minimum wage worker makes $53,000 a year per family. What Gary is talking about is the earned income tax credits. That's the way you fight poverty. But the real way you fight poverty, quit this stupid argument about minimum wage. This isn't the days of the Pinkerton Detective Agency and Andrew Carnegie. Create jobs, and you don't don't have to worry about minimum wage.
Okay, Mark, I want to get to you, but I want to have Jonas jump in here. Jonas, you actually like the idea of a federal minimum wage.
Yeah, I mean, if we have a federal minimum wage, but if we didn't have one, it should be indexed to inflation, so we could kind of put this to sleep for a few decades and not have it constantly come up with politicians using it as a vote getter. Look, I think there's some psychological benefits. You know, it will incentivize people to get a job because the distance between welfare benefits and working benefits would get wider. They could actually lower those benefits at the same time. I think that could work. You know, there's an inequality problem growing. I think it would create the illusion that it's not as bad if you got a higher thing. But in actual, like, numbers, look, when Democrats want to get you to stop smoking, they raise the price of cigarettes, right? Because it lets you consume less. If you raise the cost of labor, it's the same formula. We're going to consume less labor. So I think we're going to lose a few jobs in this, but there are some other benefits, which Mark brought up. Psychologically, the few people who have a job, it's kind of like being in a union. You're going to get paid an artificially high wage. You were getting 9, now you're getting 15. That's a good deal for some people.
Do you deserve $15 to wash dishes, though? I mean, come on now, let's call a spade here. These are not very high-paying jobs that we're talking about.
No, they're miserable paying jobs.
So then move on out of them.
No, but the issue is, who should set this wage? Should it be the company or should it be the government? Gary B., how do you weigh in?
I think the market should set the wage. Look, you open up a business and you advertise for positions at $5 an hour. If no one shows up, what are you going to do? You say, I guess maybe that wage isn't high enough. Maybe I ought to raise it to $7 an hour. This is what happens when, for example, positions open up at Walmart. There's lines around the store waiting for people
to get in. And they pay higher than the minimum wage.
And they do.
And they're higher than the minimum wage. Now, if Walmart had no lines around the store and they say, my gosh, we can really make a lot of money here in Allentown, Pennsylvania, then they would say, we need to hire workers. And then guess what? They're going to have to make the carrot bigger, and they're going to have to offer more money. That's how the market works.
Okay,
you just can't create something from nothing.
Mark is jumping out of his seat. Go ahead.
Look, I think reasonable people can disagree on whether we should raise the minimum wage or not. I think something we all can agree on is that Congress should put this to a vote and vote yes or no whether we want to raise the minimum wage. If Republicans really have an economic argument against and a philosophical opposition to the minimum wage, why not have the courage to actually vote that way? But instead, John Boehner is saying it just is too afraid politically because he knows most Americans
get this out of politics. You know, this spin is ridiculous.
Support the raise of the minimum wage.
This shouldn't even be a federal issue. That's pretty much where we're coming from here. This is not their problem. As Gary B. eloquently said, it is a market-driven issue, and that's where it should be.
Okay, let's get back to the economy. John, I want you to jump in, please.
Yeah, look, this needs to be fixed. This arguing about John Boehner, I mean, goodness, come on, stop with the stupid politics. That's what's wrong with this country. Is all you want to do is blame the other side. I agree with Jonas, the fact that you need to somehow index this to inflation or a basket of wages. The one thing I have a slight disagreement is I think it needs to go to the states, not the federal government, because you can't. Our economy is so divergent from Mississippi and Alabama to New York and Silicon Valley. You can't make one federal national wage, and it might even be down per city, and I think it does need to go to the voters. That I agree with Mark on.
Okay.
Well,
yeah, the nice thing is the federal government sets a baseline below which the minimum wage can't be below. States have voluntarily. I agree that states should be setting minimum wage as well, and there are a lot of states, sort of affluent states, that realize people need more money to live in those states, whether it's Massachusetts or California, and they set the wage higher.
But Tracy, with a tepid job market at this point, is this the time to be telling companies that you need to raise your wages?
No, and I think it takes like king-size cojones, as John would say, because how dare you tell me how to spend my money? I will get my employees the way I need to get them. Gary B. has said it, and we'll say it again, the market will dictate this. If I can't pay for good people, then I'm a jerk. I'm not a good business owner.
All right, last word. Thanks, guys.